DFIRmas Podcast, a short series podcast by Arc Forensics, hosted by Amy Moles. Today I'm joined with Kevin Pagano. Kevin Pagano is a digital forensic analyst, researcher, blogger, and contributor to the open source community, and a regular in the DFIR CTF circuit. He is the creator of Forensics Smart Me page and shares his research on his blog, starkforensics.com. Kevin holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in computer forensics from Bloomsville University of Pennsylvania and a graduate certificate in digital forensics from Champlain College. He is a member of the GIAC advisory board and holds several industry certifications, including the GASF, GCFE, GBFA, CCME, MCFE, amongst others. Kevin is a published author with multiple peer-reviewed papers accepted through DFIR Review. In his spare time, Kevin likes to create DFIR themes, designs, and stickers, and clothing, drink a variety of beers, and spend time with family and friends. Hi, Kevin. What drew you to the field of digital forensics and incident response, and how did you get started?
Hello. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. Kind of what drew me to the field was just, I guess it's like the old adage of people watching CSI and thinking, oh, this is like how you catch hackers and things. And, growing up, I always wanted to get into computers and tinker with things. And I kind of just fell into the field, I guess. I went to college at Bloomsburg University, and I actually was a computer science major coming into school. The first semester, I took a Java programming course and was terrible at it. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't do computer science. And luckily, they actually had a computer forensics degree field that was semi-new. And so I saw that was available, and I said, this sounds interesting. Let me pivot to this. And it actually worked out great because I really enjoyed, going through those classes and learning more on that sort of side of the computers, which kind of led me into DFIR in general. Once I graduated, I actually got an internship with the Pennsylvania state government. And so I, worked with them for a summer doing sort of incident response and on a larger network scale, looking for viruses and looking for people doing inappropriate things and, the typical nature of company-wide forensics.
So
After
when
that,
we first
yeah.
met, you were kind of pivoting, right, from that?
A little bit, not so much. So after I did the internship, I ended up getting a contract position with the Hershey Company. So plenty of chocolate around the offices there, doing basically evidence intake for e-discovery cases. We had a large hard drive backlog that I started on doing kind of that, and then pivoting into more of a technical role, working with the legal department, doing e-discovery collections, doing sort of some low-level HR investigations. And then once I got more experience, then I was kind of taking the lead on the HR investigations. And then after that, that kind of curtailed my me coming into my current position at Siemens Healthineers, where I started doing e-discovery there for about 2 or 3 years, and then pivoted to doing full-time forensics for the past about 6 or 7 years there. So working on global investigations for HR, compliance, legal, and then also assisting kind of our incident response teams as well.
So you're also leading an effort outside of work, right, in terms of open source development. Is that right?
I wouldn't say leading, but I'm definitely part of the contributing factors, I would say. I've worked hand in hand with Alexis Brignoni on some of the LEAP projects. So we have a group of people now that are kind of taking charge on developing it and making it bigger and better than what it was even, a few years ago. So there's a lot of things in the works there that we're looking forward to releasing and developing further in the future.
So why are open source tool sets so important for our community and for digital forensics? I think a lot of individuals don't understand the value behind it.
I think like especially as an analyst, we see how much that license costs are increasing, and how much harder it is to get good tools that are available to use in the community. Open source tools really gives us an extra advantage of being able to verify the results of commercial tools, but then also being able to contribute back to these projects and kind of learn the inner workings of how a tool works, and more of like a from the development side, understanding what goes into making these tools function and how can we make them better and quicker than going through all the commercial cycles of DevOps, I guess.
Do you have a favorite tool that you like, an open source tool?
I mean, I guess I could say I'm a little bit biased. I mean, obviously the Leap projects, so A-Leap for Android, iLeap for iOS, R-Leap, which is the returns and processes like Google Takeout and different returns of that nature. Um, I contribute to those, so I guess those are my favorites. But I also have started kind of a list of a bunch of different other tools that I've found over the years from GitHub and different other repositories. So I guess I'll give a few more shout outs. One of my favorites recently is UFade by Christian Peter. It's a tool that can do iOS backups, um, process and collect from sysdiagnose logs, a bunch of different other things that it can do, collecting from iOS devices, and it's all written in Python. Looks really cool. Um, Autopsy is kind of the tried and true classic tool that's been out there for forever, that I still utilize here and there when you need to look at sort of a forensic image. Um, One other tool I recently just came across and had the chance to use it the other day is called Fuji, by
Yeah.
Andrea Lazzarato. It does sort of collections from Mac devices. So I'm looking forward to playing with that more and getting a feel for how we could utilize that even in my day job too.
Yeah, so we had Derek Erie on the show, and he had referenced the same tool set. He really likes it. So we already popped that into the resources for the description, for the YouTube video there. So, but I'll make sure that we highlight it again here. So like, I guess like when you're using these tools, are you actively using them for casework, or you're just using them for research, or both?
I would say a little bit of both. Casework kind of feeds into some of the research and um, community open source tools, because sometimes commercial tools don't have parsers for different artifacts that we're seeing in the field. Whether it's, especially with mobile phones, commercial tools can only get up to date on so many of the large name apps, but what about other chat apps that, you know, aren't supported yet? So kind of open source allows us to possibly make parsers for those quicker, get them out to practitioners that need it the most, especially even in like law enforcement, being able to assist them in, making parsers to help them further their cases along as well.
So the parsing that you guys put together, all the parsers and stuff like that that you're creating, you said that you could do it quicker. Is that because of the collaboration that's happening across the entire community, or why is like what's the difference there?
I mean, so I think just in general, like the collaboration, yeah, is one thing. Being able to get, you know, see what is out there that isn't supported by commercial tools, and then preparing some test devices to test out the apps and actually pull some of the research uh, test data back into the parsers that we need, and then being able to code it up as quick as we can to at least get preliminary results back that could help with cases.
So it sounds like your environment that you're currently operating in is very friendly in terms of using open source tools for casework and stuff along those lines. So there is some adoption issues though, and we see this for our point too, like when we first started out, adoption syndrome is real. So how can you kind of guide people or give any advice to individuals who are trying to get an open source tool set in their environment if there is an adoption situation that they're battling?
Um, that's always going to be a hard one. I can't really speak on the adoption methods for like police departments or anything because I don't have any background in that. But I think just being able to verify our results with other tools, potentially if they are pulling the same information and just showing that, hey, these results are coming back with the same thing. The data is the data, no matter how you're analyzing it. And then being able to just make sure that we can um, have access to executables that are up to date and that are, run through their paces.
So some of the tool sets that you're referencing do require individuals to know a little bit of code, not a lot, depending on what they're using. And sometimes they don't require any coding at all. But can you kind of talk to the value of like why it's important to learn a coding language for individuals? Because it is something for someone who is coming into the industry who doesn't have a computer science background or who is not familiar with any type of languaging or programming, it can be really intimidating to figure out like where to start, why is it important, all of those details.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I said before, I didn't have a coding background kind of when I went through school, and I hated Java. But I only started learning Python, I would say maybe 3, 4 years ago, just because I wanted to learn something new. Obviously, Python is kind of one of the leading, I would say, open source coding um, languages in our field. So, just kind of diving in and getting your hands on, examples that are out there, trying to find books that might have information on just smaller examples that not necessarily, making parsers, but being able to read a CSV file or a SQLite file using Python, or just being able to pull information from one side of the file to another file or something like that can be very helpful.
Do you have a favorite book or something like a reference or a resource that you like?
Um, so there's a book by there's a Python for forensics book out there. I believe it's from Pact Publishing. That is pretty good. It has some really good kind of real world examples on how uh, coding different things can output to uh, different pieces. So I've read through that a little bit. Wouldn't say I'd read it cover to cover, but that one was pretty good. Uh, Alexis Brignoni did a Python kind of study group course. I think it's like 10 or 11 episodes back during COVID. That was a kind of a foundation of Python course, which is pretty good. Um, what I've found recently is using kind of AI like ChatGPT to just write snippets of code to try to interpret and kind of get to a starting point of where you want to look at things. That has helped, I would say, in the past year or so with just getting pieces of code and trying to better understand what it's doing. Now, you always have to have that grain of salt where, uh, you know, AI may not be fully accurate on what it's actually spitting out to you. So you just have to verify that it's doing the right thing for you.
So when you're building out parsers, let's say for one of the lead projects, is there a way that you having like a peer review process done on those parsers as well?
Yeah, so we're working on trying to get better at that. We have a nice, solid working group of developers that we can bounce ideas back and forth with, and also try to help verify our parsers as well. I think the biggest thing for us is just getting that test data available to other people, and then having them run through it and looking at the code and just making sure that the code is doing what it should be doing. Um, and then also utilizing publicly available images from like Josh Hickman or any of the other kind of CTFs that are out there from different vendors that have publicly available forensic images, because that is kind of data that's set in stone that you can run scripts against and try to get results.
Yeah, absolutely. I always forget about the CTF data that sits out there afterwards because a lot of these vendors, when they do CTFs, they make it available after the fact, after the event. Um, and I'm sure you can find those really quickly by just Googling whatever past event it is, and you can find that data set really quickly. So, in terms of like people who are just starting out, or maybe even doing career changes or something along those lines, do you think is the biggest challenges that they're going to be facing here in the next couple of years?
Um, I would say just like getting their hands on, getting their hands dirty with just you know putting stuff out there on their own, and create a blog or something. Um, you know, network with people, get to know people. If you're struggling to kind of get into an entry level position, network with people on LinkedIn, network people with on, X or Blue Sky or any of your social media sites. Just interact with people. If you really want to get into it, look at some of the GitHub repositories, see if you can contribute to them, or even just testing them out for people and just verifying that, the results are what the results should be. Um, One of the biggest things that I've found is, writing that blog, and even if it's just testing out a tool, writing, how you found X, Y, and Z helpful and what could be improved on a tool. What are the pros and cons of doing different things with tools.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of individuals are a little intimidated to write blogs, and I referenced this before, and I kick myself in the butt all the time for not doing it, but not stepping out and having the confidence in my own skill set to share that with the rest of the community. And also maybe not having enough confidence in my skill set to also be wrong so that someone can correct me so that I can become a better examiner or practitioner in my field. So that was something that I always struggled on early on in my career. Now I'm the person who is annoying, who asks all the questions, and I'm
I
not
mean,
scared to ask any questions at all.
the best thing too is, if you really don't want to put your name out there, you can go under a pseudonym too. If you're, a little bit hesitant on people critiquing your writing or your blog posts. So, you can always get feedback that way too. Um, you know, I wouldn't recommend it, but you could do it that way if you really wanted to be a little bit more hiding behind a name. But if you really want to put yourself out there, I would recommend, using your own name, or at least referencing your LinkedIn or something to give yourself that own credit, so people know who to kind of contribute those posts back to,
Yeah,
especially if they're well
absolutely.
written.
And like to ask questions, direct questions, right, on a different platform. I think is important to have that type of conversation back and forth. That's how we all grow and learn as a community. So that's super important. Is there specific skills or certifications that people should be seeking out in this industry?
I mean, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit. I think coding is definitely becoming more and more important. There's obviously that kind of um, there's a little bit of a learning curve there for different languages. I mean, it doesn't have to be Python specifically. It can be, learning SQLite, which is a little bit easier to comprehend. There's so many databases out there for like even mobile apps that utilize that you can pull information out of. In terms of kind of certifications, it does. A lot of times they're tied to taking training courses, which I know are ever increasing in pricing, which can be hard for someone that's kind of getting into the industry. So if you already have a job, take advantage of what your employer may have budgeted for you for training. If not, there's other opportunities out there. An example being SANS has a work study program where you can apply, and then if you get accepted, you kind of work with the instructor, and then also get a greatly discounted pricing on the course too.
And I think that's
There's
a really
also
good opportunity to be able to work directly with an instructor. The amount of just knowledge sharing that goes back and forth with that.
Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity. I've been able to do it twice now. I think it's becoming harder to apply because so many people are trying to apply for it. But it's really cool to interact kind of with the instructor on a one-on-one basis here and there for a little bit. You do put in a little bit of work of helping moderate the courses and things. And I don't know if the structure has changed at all, but it's cool from that perspective as well. And then there's also a bunch of other, lower tier or lower priced options for training. I mean, Hexordia is doing some great things with some of their free courses. I might be a little bit biased there too, because we all love Jessica and the team that's doing great work there. Some other ones I like are 13 Cubed, which is a really good one. He also has a bunch of YouTube videos that are up for free that walk you through different artifacts and different things that you can view there. Um, so there's definitely a lot of different free trainings and low cost trainings that are out there.
Yeah, and I don't want people to be confused either. Low cost doesn't mean low quality. So these are high quality content that's being put out that's constantly refreshed. I know personally, again, Jessica is a friend of mine, but her mission in general was like, I want to make this more accessible. I want more people involved in this community. How do I do that? And she's putting out this amazing content that is like a fraction of the cost for most of these other platforms. So it's really important. Um, just so that people understand that difference there. And then is there also, just to kind of finish out the technical aspect of this show, is there any last like little tidbits of advice that you could give somebody, or maybe if you were talking to yourself when you first started out in your career, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think get your hands on everything you can, especially if you're fresh out of college or if you're changing careers midway through your journey, is just diving headfirst into everything you can get your hands on. There's so many resources out there now that you can utilize, and that's kind of why I created my Start Me page, is to have bookmarks of everything that is freely available or mostly freely available to people to utilize, because we've seen so many people that are pivoting and trying to get into this industry, and it's becoming harder and harder. So yeah, just getting your hands on the tools, getting your hands on some experience, whether it's playing CTFs or going through YouTube videos or blog posts, and just kind of getting that preliminary experience working with everything there.
Awesome. That's great advice. So I should have taken that, I don't know, 15 plus years ago. Also, a mentor will help you early on in your career. I always tell people, like, get a mentor as soon as possible, someone that
I,
you
I
know
would
and respect.
yeah. I would also say, you can never underestimate networking. I mean, I've met so many amazing people just going through conferences or through social media and then meeting them at conferences, and you never know what kind of doors and opportunities those will open for you, just interacting with people everywhere.
Yeah, so like our connection. So I think that we had originally connected, I would say on LinkedIn, and then I met you in person, but I felt like I knew you forever by the time that I met you for the first time in person, which was at HTCIA, which was it was a good conference. But I was just like I didn't really know what you looked like or anything like that because I was so used to like conversing online.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
wild.
sure. Yeah. Mhm.
So this is an exciting time of year, especially for you. You have a little one. First holiday, traditions, all this stuff. What are you looking most forward to?
I would say this year it's just, almost every year it's just enjoying that time off. I usually take a chunk of PTO and just try to reset for the end of the year and enjoy that time with family and friends, and especially with our little one now. Just enjoying those moments with her for her first time of any holidays now, and getting her to meet all her little cousins and second cousins and other family members she hasn't met yet, which is going to be really exciting.
Do y'all have a big family gathering?
Yeah, typically Christmas Eve, my dad's side of the family, we get our whole family together. So I think there's probably 30 or 40 of us now, as well as all the kids. All the cousins have kids, multiple kids. So we usually try to gather at one of the houses and just enjoy the company and good food and good conversations and just have
Oh,
fun
it'll
with
be
it.
so nice. That sounds awesome. So I love that getting together and just kind of like being able, especially the little ones when they all interact, if they don't see each other for like long periods of time. I know when that's Thanksgiving for me. So I go up to see my family in New York, and just my son gets like to hang out with his cousins, and it's a great bonding experience. And it's so funny to like watch them, interact, and because they talk through FaceTime and all this other stuff, but to see them in person, it's very different. So it's really nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I sincerely appreciate it. And you're an amazing guest. I had no doubt that you weren't going to be. So, I'm going to make sure that we pop all the resources that you've referenced in the show in the description. So, if anyone has any questions or want to reach out to you directly, we'll know exactly where to find you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Happy holidays.